Maps define us. Imaginary lines that delineate neighborhoods. They speak to where we've been and who we are. But these old boundaries only show part of the picture. Here are the new maps of Brooklyn. These are the maps that tell the story of Brooklyn today. And this is what it's like to live on the grid.
Hi, my name is Zephyr Teachout, and today we're going to be looking at where Yiddish is spoken at home in Brooklyn, where people work, where they live. So we're going to start with an interview with John Mollenkopf, who's the director of CUNY's Center for Urban Research. He's going to take us through the numbers, and we're going to go on the grid in Brooklyn.
Hello. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. How was your ride?
Very refreshing. We're going to have a great adventure today. We're going to talk about the Yiddish-speaking neighborhoods of Brooklyn.
Right.
In particular, the most important ones, or the biggest ones, are here in Crown Heights, where we are, Williamsburg with the Satmar community, and Borough Park, which has a number of different Orthodox communities living there.
Can we just start with numbers? Like, what kind of overall numbers are...
Well, according to the census, about 87,000 people live in households that speak Yiddish at home here in Brooklyn. And the biggest one, of course, is Borough Park with about 36,000, about 24,000 here in Williamsburg, and then a smaller amount in Crown Heights.
Of the people who speak Yiddish at home, did they grow up in this country? Where are they learning Yiddish?
90% of them grew up in this country. And the median household size is 6, so they have a lot of kids in their household.
Can you give me some kind of portrait? Is there any kind of employment portrait that you'd see?
I mean, it's interesting. People might think of Orthodox Jews, ultra-Orthodox Jews working in the Diamond District or B&H Camera or something like that. But most people in the neighborhoods are actually at home and studying and not at work. The poverty rate is pretty high. 47% of the people in Yiddish-speaking households in Brooklyn qualify as under the poverty line.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. What about women, gender, and work?
There are very low rates of labor force participation among the women, probably well less than half, which is unusual in New York because most women are working.
So why don't we go into these 3 different neighborhoods then?
These 2 are different sects. So the Satmar are here, and the Lubavitchers are here in Crown Heights. And they have very different orientations to the world and to religion. The Satmar, for example, don't believe it's time yet for Israel to be a separate state. And they're also very inwardly focused, whereas the Lubavitchers are well known for their mitzvah tanks driving around town and the people that come up to you and ask if you're Jewish.
In terms of sort of interacting with politics, what would you say is the political profile?
In a way, they're very much against the secular world. But I think they're very astute about the importance of their vote.
Is this growing or shrinking? You know, what I've read that sort of Yiddish on the whole is really in decline internationally.
In the long historical sweep, yes. The generation from 1890 to 1915 was a Yiddish-speaking movement from Central Europe. The Yiddish theater, Yiddish papers, and so forth has largely died out. But these communities are definitely growing, and the use of the language is very much alive in them.
Well, thank you so much. This is really interesting.
Good luck on it.
87,000 people speak Yiddish in Brooklyn. That's incredible. That's the size of Trenton, New Jersey. In order to understand the magnitude of this, I go to visit the Satmar sect in Williamsburg. This Hasidic community was established in 1947 by Rabbi Joel Teitelbaum and other survivors of the Holocaust. Teitelbaum encouraged his followers to speak only Yiddish and strictly follow the teachings of the Torah. To learn more about this community, I invite Frida Wiesel, who grew up among the Satmars of Kiryas Joel in Monroe, New York, to help me explore the Hasidic culture of today.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Calf's Bakery is one of the most popular kosher bakeries on Lee Avenue in Williamsburg. They have been selling certified kosher dairy products to the community since 1989.
Oh, we got some puff pastry rugelach. We grew up calling them kippelach. This is where standard Yiddish that we all know about is different than Hasidic Yiddish here. People know the word rugelach, but the word kippelach, it originates apparently from a Hungarian pastry, and it reflects the different regional areas that Yiddish was brought from, whereas standard Yiddish comes mostly from Eastern Europe. A lot of Central Europe, Hungarian Jews settled here and brought a different Yiddish.
So where in Brooklyn should I call one of these amazing looking things a kippelach?
We're gonna make kippelach part of the language. Okay. Call them everywhere.
Okay. So how would Yiddish be used? Like if I'm buying this kippelach, would are a lot of the business transactions here and the social transactions in Yiddish, or is it just in the home?
We could do it in both Yiddish and English. Most people would do their business transactions primarily in Yiddish, especially if whoever's at the counter is a man. That would be my impulse. But there's always a lot of English mixed into the Yiddish because of the influence of the environment it is in.
Grassi danke? How am I doing?
It's an effort.
No, how do I say it?
Shkoya.
Shkoya, shkoya.
Why don't you taste one?
Okay.
It's really good. It's good, right? It's good for your hips, it's good for everything.
Frida left the Satmar sect in her mid-20s. Even though our presence is tolerated, it is not encouraged.
Yiddish originated from Old German, but with time it incorporated Hebrew and a lot of Eastern languages where the Jews lived at the time, and it became its own unique Yiddish, which is actually, what's a Yid? It's a Jew. Yiddish is Jewish. It's the unique Jewish language.
So if I blindfolded you and put you here in Williamsburg versus in, say, Crown Heights, and you just could hear people speak, and that's it, would you know where you were?
I would definitely know in Crown Heights. Even in Borough Park, which is also Hasidic, people have a different enunciation of certain letters. For instance, the L would be more American, and I would be able to regionally distinguish between people of more piety and insularity than others. I don't know to which degree Yiddish is spoken in Crown Heights, but it's definitely spoken as a first language here and in many homes in Borough Park.
Now, what is the role that Yiddish plays in the spiritual or religious community?
That's a great question. Yiddish plays a very, very important role in the spiritual, religious community in preservation of the faith, which is so important in this community. When I was a child, I was always taught that the three reasons why Jews were saved from Egypt in the Exodus was because they didn't change their Shaim, Lushan, and Malbish. Shaim is the name, Lushan is the language, and Malbish is the clothes. It was such a central part of our religious philosophy that preserving the clothing was a way of preserving the faith. What's interesting is Yiddish is called Mama Lushan, which means mother's tongue, and Hebrew is called Lushan HaKodesh, the holy tongue. And the important thing is that Lushan HaKodesh is very different from Ivrit. Ivrit is modern Hebrew. And you can see from the word itself that it's a modern language, it's a modern interpretation of Hebrew. It's related to the Zionist movement, which the Satmar community does not support.
You see modern Hebrew, your best guess is there's no relationship to the Satmar community.
Exactly. All of these toys that we're going to see inside are examples of how this community is creating its own material.
That image there with the sort of classic princess
right, exactly. We all know that game, but here it's not a princess, it's a kala, which is a bride. And it shows how language expresses culture or faith, because this expresses the hope for every girl to grow up to be a bride and get married, which is so important. This is a game about dressing up to help people who are maybe have a busted tire or locked out of their houses. The language is so much more than just a language. It's a vehicle for faith. See these books, they're constantly produced.
So it seems like Yiddish internationally is shrinking as a language, but in this area, it's really rapidly growing.
Exactly, because as the community is growing, the language is. All of these books have so much about character development and moral lessons.
So what are the sort of core values?
The importance of not being angry and not being jealous, not being spiteful. One of the values in the community is that any personality flaw can be changed. You just have to work on it, and that's when you really serve God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I was asking you about the language differences, but what would you say are sort of deep cultural differences between this community and, again, Crown Heights?
The Chabad community and the Hasidic community of Williamsburg are extremely different because they have a fundamental ideological difference. The Hasidim from Williamsburg view the outside world as a force that should be kept out by all means, which is why Yiddish is so much more important to Hasidim here, whereas the Chabad community views the outside world as a force that should be changed, brought in. They have proselytizing as a huge part of their culture. One runs from the outside world and the other runs into it to try to change it.
My trip continues with a visit to Crown Heights. The Chabad movement was created by a dynasty of Hasidic rebbes in Lubavitch, Russia, in what is now Belarus. Its founder, Shneur Zalman, wrote prolifically about Jewish mysticism and law.
Welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. I'm Rabbi Beryl Epstein, originally from the Holy Land of Tennessee, and we're in a subterranean library, which we give the introduction to the Jewish tours.
Today we're, as part of this exploration of Brooklyn, we're looking at where Yiddish is spoken at home and what defines this community in your understanding.
So let me just give a little bit of background. There's over 200 different Hasidic groups. You're only in one of them. There's not a lot of tours of the other Hasidic groups by members of the community themselves, because each Hasidic community is emulating the founding rabbi's worldview in the year 1800. So depending on the founding rabbi's worldview in 1800, that's how each Hasidic group is interacting with the outside world to this day. So all the things we're going to see today, from the Bheard, which means a person cannot put a blade against their face at 5 points, 2 of the side locks, 3 at the chin, to a yarmulke, to actually a 4-cornered garment, which Jewish men are commanded to wear, a tassel attached to a 4-cornered garment. Now, it says in the Bible, you should look at these, remember all you have to do. So some people say they get dressed in the morning, they saw it. Other Hasidic Jews may wear it inside, but have just the strings out. And then other Hasidic Jews may actually get dressed and then put it on like a cape over their clothing. Now, that's the custom. The law is to wear it.
Let's say tomorrow morning you wake up and intentionally put a blade to one of the 5 corners.
Okay.
And you choose to do that. Just again, to understand the theology from the outside, what is
we consider that as sin.
And what does sin mean?
Sin means to disconnect from God. Now, interestingly, if you take a rope and you cut it in the middle, and now it's disconnected, if you reattach it, you have to pull the 2 ends closer because you need more rope to get the knot there, right? So we say where a person stands who reconnected is higher than a person who never sinned.
I think a lot of people are curious about Yiddish in Brooklyn. How would you describe the relationship between this language and the kind of theological community you're talking about?
So I would say this community has become more Yinglish than Yiddish, because as more people come from the outside and study here, the store signs in the community have gone from Yiddish to English or to Yinglish, because specifically a lot of Hasidic communities only speak in Yiddish, and they intentionally do not speak in Hebrew because Hebrew is a holy language. But we say as a Hasidic community that it's not as important which language you speak as what you say in that language. So it may be, I would say Hebrew is even more common than Yiddish here.
You can perhaps teach me some languages. I want to learn a little Yiddish, a little Aramaic, and a little Hebrew.
Shalom Aleichem is Hebrew. Salam Aleikum is Aramaic.
Yes, yeah. So, salam alaikum.
They're close, but not perfectly connected. Okay.
And now I really need to know Yiddish, because today's about Yiddish.
Was machst du? How are you?
Was machst du?
So let's go over to the scribe now. Sounds okay? Good? Great. Okay. So today we're going to just learn a little bit about the scribal arts of the Jewish people. There's 3 commandments. One is a black box that has to go on the head and the arm. These are spiritual transmitters and receivers. Mind and heart should talk to each other, because the male species have a preponderance for disconnect. But they have to be made exactly right. So if you look right over here, you're going to see that he's actually wrapping parchment with Hebrew letters on it in animal skin, and then wrapping it in the hair from the tail of a kosher animal, placing it into a black box. This is a final product, but it has to start out with a skin under the chin of a cow. It's very pliable, but it's hard. We soak it and we start stretching it. Hold that, and we turn it into this. So we start forming it until we come to something like this. So this actually takes a year to go from rawhide to eventually the 4 chambers, and they cannot tear along that way. Then we have to put something inside the tefillin, which carries the power to accomplish that transformation in your mind and heart. This has to be written on animal skin with a feather from a kosher bird, not a bird of prey. Then the ink has to be handmade from kosher ingredients.
When an ingredient is kosher, it means a rabbi supervised the production and certified that all the raw materials came from kosher animals. Animals like pigs, birds of prey, and certain seafoods are not considered kosher due to various biblical passages.
So right over here we have a Torah on animal skin. That is the 5 books of Moses. This is one of 60 sheets.
Within Judaism, writing a Torah scroll is a religious art. This entire process is done by hand and takes a whole year to be completed.
Any 2 letters touch each other, it invalidates the entire scroll. And the Jewish man is commanded to hear every Monday, Thursday, and the Sabbath a portion of this to regenerate his soul as if the Torah was given today.
So what does this tefillin say?
This tefillin commands us to put on the black boxes. That's what's written inside of here. These are the 4 sections of the Torah, the command, and say those words.
Can you read a section of that? Is that okay?
Be happy to. Okay, v'haya im shemoa tishmeu el mitzvosai asher anochi mitzavacha eschem hayom. If you will listen to me, these commandments, which I have commanded you to do this day, to love, lava es Adonai Elohecha uvelavda b'chol levavecha, to serve God, your God, with all your heart, u'b'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. Every single door, every Jewish person's home. If you look right over here, we have on the doorpost a mezuzah. This is part of what I just read. This is the life force of well-being into a Jewish person's home. And it's commanded to be on every doorpost, and not just of your home, but also of your workplace.
The Chabad community is the largest Jewish organization in the world. Having moved from Russia to Latvia to Poland in the run-up to World War II, Chabad relocated to the United States and Crown Heights in 1940. Today, there are approximately 40 synagogues in the neighborhood, including the Lubavitcher's world headquarters, our final stop on the tour.
We're in a Hasidic synagogue. We can see them, but they cannot see us. And it's very similar to what a synagogue was in Eastern Europe. It's a big room, a lot of things going on. Our custom is once a boy is 13, he puts on a hat. Once a man is married, he wears the white prayer shawl. So if you look downstairs, particularly from the women's section, it's good to see who's married or to see who's still available. There was a men's section and a women's section in the temple in Jerusalem. That is why in the synagogue we have a separation between the men and women, because we're spiritually corresponding to what was happening in Jerusalem. You only have to get married to really profoundly study, and then you need to provide for your wife. So this is considered like a race against time. And my time is very limited. I only acquire so much information until I get married. Most people fail in life when there's an inconsistency between what he knows and what he should be doing. That's where the land of regret comes from. So we say if you are able to focus yourself, now you're able to go and transform other people to make sure that they are able to live consistently with what they know is right. So you might see people swaying downstairs. We consider prayer like meditation. You know, when a person meditates, they get more in touch with the soul than the body. So too a Jewish man, he has his prayer shawl on, he has his black boxes on, and he's praying, and he's turning on the soul, and the soul wants to lift off. In that attempt to lift off, he will start swaying automatically, unconsciously. Every single day, you gotta get your mind and heart going in the right direction. It's a daily struggle of the mind and heart.
Really fascinating.
Good, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad we got to come in here.
I didn't want you to miss this.
The Lubavitch community attaches great importance to this building and has built replicas all over the world, from Canada to Cambodia.
This is 770 Eastern Park. This is the World Lubavitch headquarters. Now, I want you to look on top of the door. See the word Lubavitch? Mm-hmm. That's the name of the city that we actually physically came from in Europe. Mm-hmm. Okay? And Lubavitch means love, and we're from Russia. So we are the original from Russia with love. Mm-hmm. And instead of 007, we are 770. Because anywhere you go in the world, just say I was at 770, and they will know this is the iconic location of Lubavitch World Headquarters.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Grazie danke.
Grace the Dank.
Grace the Dank. Grace the Dank. It really was a fascinating tour.
Good,
so,
good.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
My exploration of Yiddish-speaking Brooklyn continues with a trip to Borough Park. This neighborhood has 36,000 Yiddish speakers and is the largest group of Jewish people in the United States. To learn more about this community, I meet up with Jacob Gluck. He's the founder of Hasidic Williamsburg Tours and currently works as a teacher.
Zephyr, it's good to meet you.
Jacob, so nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to show you around Borough Park. Borough Park is the predominant Orthodox neighborhood in Brooklyn, and it's also known for its diversity. There are many different sects and different streams of Orthodoxy here, including the Haredi version, which is known as ultra-Orthodox also.
The ultra-Orthodox Haredi community regards itself as the most religiously authentic group of Jews. They maintain a strict observance of Jewish law and segregate themselves from modern society.
This is basically the groundwork, the cornerstone of the Borough Park that you see nowadays, which has transformed into ultra-Orthodoxy, which is a step above mere Orthodoxy. So Orthodox is simply people who keep halacha. Halacha is Jewish law, as passed on over many centuries. The Haredi movement, also known as ultra-Orthodox, takes it a step further and says that not only do they have to keep the law, but they also strive towards separatism. Meaning they're saying, we're not going to be part of the mainstream culture.
When you were growing up, what'd you speak?
I spoke Yiddish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think in Yiddish still?
Oh, it's a good question. I remember when I transitioned.
Oh, when was
it? Thinking from Yiddish to English. That was at about age 19.
What happened?
It was a conscious decision. When I left the community, I had to adopt the American norm, which is the English language. And I knew that I had to do that in order to assimilate, which was my ultimate goal.
Why did you choose to leave?
In one word, ideology. I didn't believe in the system anymore. The godly things,
yes.
the world to come, observing the mitzvot, doing God's will, things like that. They meant nothing to me.
How many Jews live in Borough Park who are not either Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox?
Overwhelmingly ultra-Orthodox, I would say.
And you grew up here?
And I grew up here, yes. I grew up in the 80s. This is the heyday of ultra-Orthodoxy in America, in my opinion. And maybe I'm being romantic about it, but I really think that was the heyday.
So can you give me a nice, welcoming Yiddish phrase so I can chat with people in Borough Park?
Okay, I have a good one for you.
Okay.
This one is one of my favorites. Mechanisch tanzen auf zwei Chasanas.
Mechanisch tanzen auf zwei Hasanas.
You got it!
Can't dance on two weddings.
What is it?
Dance
She
on
knows
two
this one.
weddings.
You can't enjoy two festivals at the same time. You gotta choose which one.
Oh, I
It's a
see.
metaphor.
Yes,
It's a
right.
metaphor.
Do you speak
My-
Yiddish at home?
My son speaks with his children Yiddish. He became Hasidic.
So, one of the questions is, what is the role of Yiddish in the community?
Well, like I say, my son speaks it. Most of the people around here standing here.
Do you see it connected to religion in a way?
Here in Borough Park, for sure.
Okay.
We're not what you would call the Yiddishists.
Uh-huh.
Because those are the people who admire the language.
They make a contrived effort to retain the language. Here it's natural, it's organic.
Exactly.
Okay.
They
are
pick it up
totally
from their
right.
parents, and the Yiddishists are secular. I grew up here. My heart is very, very
I'm
Jewish.
wearing a wig because that's what Orthodox women in Borough Park wear, wigs. But I'm a little bit, my earrings. and
yes, you
I'm
guys-
wearing a denim dress, but I allow myself to be who I am.
In contrast to what you might have seen in Williamsburg, this community here is much more open to outsiders coming in, interviewing them, conversing with them, and they want to know about the world outside of them.
Well, thank you for giving this little slice of Borough Park and the slice of history. I've forgotten the wonderful thing about dancing at two weddings, but I will keep...
Mechanisch tanzen auf zwei Chasanas.
Mechanisch tanzen auf zwei Hasanas.
You get it.
And then do
You
I
only
say...
go to one wedding. You gotta choose which one.
For our final stop of the day, I travel to Bay Ridge to listen to the Sway Machinery Band. Started by Jeremiah Lockwood in 2006, the band combines Jewish cantorial music with modern-day blues and jazz.
Hi, I'm Zephyr.
Hey Zephyr, pleasure to meet you.
Hi, it's really nice to meet you. So, that was amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
I understand you come from a significant family.
I come from a cantorial family. My grandfather was a well-known cantor named Cantor Jacob Koenigsberg, and I sang with him growing up, and sang in his choir even as a young man. Deep roots in Jewish religious music.
Talk a little bit about what language you're singing in.
Well, I'm singing in what we call Loshen Kodesh. That's the holy language. Yeah. So, it's mixed in with Yiddish words, and the pronunciation style for singing the prayers uses the phonology of the Yiddish language.
So give me examples of what the pronunciation style is and isn't, so that you could tell the difference.
Some of it's a bit subtle, like something that would probably mostly be noticeable to someone who, is a speaker of modern Hebrew in Israel. Like, to them, it sounds really weird the way I pronounce Hebrew. Well, in that last one I just sang, the chorus, it's like an old Hasidic song, and the chorus, the verses are all lines from the prayer book, the Hebrew verses. But then in between, you throw in the words Nochamal, Nochamal, which means one more time.
Okay.
It gives it this kind of this depth, the taste, the flavor of the language.
And is this your invention, this combination?
No. It's very, very old, and you hear it in the old chazanim. That's the cantors. The chazan is the Jewish word for cantor. The Jewish word for cantor. Cantor is kind of Jewish also. But chazanim in the old days would oftentimes interject Yiddish words into the midst of the prayers.
So what do you think it does? What do you think the sort of inclusion of Yiddish in the Hebrew singing does?
Well, I think there's just always a tension in terms of trying to balance between the high and the low.
Yeah.
And the purpose of music is to connect those two places.
Well, thank you for both that description, but I'd love to hear you sing and play some more.
Well, what better place to do it than right here on
Yes.
the pier?
Listening to Jeremiah, it's amazing to think in tens of thousands of homes in Brooklyn, Yiddish is being spoken right now. In fact, by more than 1 in 25 Brooklynites. Here, at least, what most people might think is a dying language is alive and well.
Even